Everybody, this is Alexander Fitzgerald, or Assassinato, doing another one of my training videos for Tournament Poker Edge. Today we're going to be discussing my final table run in the PHAT Big 10 25K guaranteed on America's Card Room. This is probably the 1000th training video I've done in my life since 2007, so I want to let you know I have learned a few things doing these, and the way this is going to go is this is a hand history review, but I have some notes here for concepts that will help you play in this fashion. So there is a benefit to hand history reviews, which is you get to see the rhythm of how a player plays. If you've ever seen a final table where every hand is revealed, it's actually very interesting to see what people fold. And I would like to deliver that as well to you. But at the same time, I also want you guys to get some core concepts while you watch, okay? So when we watch and when we get to certain spots, I'm going to break it down. I'm going to do it in a question and answer format. I'm going to say, what do you think you should do here? What is the most important thing to think about? I'm really going to harp on what is the most important thing to think about in this situation, because most poker hands, if you're playing live, it's about 13 seconds in before people start motioning towards you and hurrying you along. Online, you have 30 seconds at most, but whatever you think about first is going to take up a dominant amount of the analysis. So if you start on a thought that is beneficial, but perhaps is the 14th most important thing to think about, you're going to have a very ineffective modality of making decisions. It's like putting the top piece of the pyramid at the bottom. It's going to be very structurally weak. So we're going to start with what I consider the basics. My basics are different than pretty much everybody else's basics, but when they're applied to personal lessons, they tend to help people pretty well. So we're going to go through that. We will start here from the beginning. Queen 8 suited, you could go ahead and give that an open if you would like, but I choose to fold that there. Here with the Queen 3 suited, I'm very liberal about what I call from the big blind, because I think the vast majority of people here c-bet. They open 25% of hands and they c-bet too much, which means they have nothing on 55% of boards, which means oftentimes I can check raise and take the pot away. So I probably do flat here. This is one of these boards, it would be very hard to sell check raise bluff. Many times, the most common card that our opponent can have is an ace. So this board has hit him a disproportionate amount of the time where there's less aces in my range. I probably would have 3-bet ace king, possibly ace queen, I would have 3-bet ace queen, ace jack, ace 10, etc. So it would be very difficult for me to represent that board. He's hit that board quite often, so I just go ahead and fold here. By the way, I haven't watched this hand history, so I'm going to assume I know what I do. I actually don't mind 3-betting versus that person on occasion if I do know that person opens 20-25% of the hands. Something I've been working on quite a bit lately is my 3-bet from the small blind. I think I've gotten it very effective. Ace-deuce offsuit is in a special category of hands. If you open anything suited and semi-connected, you can make money as long as nobody 3-bets you. So focusing on late position opens is very beneficial to you, because obviously the less people there are, the less often you're going to be 3-bet. And with suited gappers, suited connectors, whatnot, if people flat you, it gives you great implied odds, and there's a lot of things you can hit. Now, if you have like a king 10 offsuit and you raise that from, say, under the gun and 5 people call you, you're generally going to make enough to justify your initial investment. Probably not that much, but you won't have a negative expectation. However, if you have ace-deuce offsuit, you open and 5 people call you, you have a negative expectation. This is one of the worst hands in regards to 3-bets. If somebody 3-bets you and you do not have the intention to 4-bet with this ace-deuce offsuit, it is awful. And a lot of times at the beginning of tournaments, you don't have enough data to 4-bet someone. The average person 4-bets about 6% of their hands, so it's actually not a really good idea to 4-bet ace-deuce offsuit. So you can't 4-bet it. You can't flat 3-bets with it. It doesn't do well when multiple people flat you. This is why I think this hand is so wildly overvalued, and I do not understand why people insist on opening it from the hijack. Okay, so with the aces, generally when you're opening, as we discussed, you should be picking hands that can do very well when flatted and looking for situations where you're not going to be flatted that often. Now, to cover for those situations, I usually open a little bit larger, which dissuades people from 3-betting way more than it should. For that reason, I tend to open a little bit bigger with my aces to cover that. So I do open a little bit larger. And I don't know if you guys can hear it, but you just might hear the sounds of Long Island City in the background. Forgive me for that. Jack-9 suited, you can make an open profitable there, but opening 2 times in a row, it's a little bit more likely you're going to get 3-bet. If I had this hand back to play today, I would open it. But in that case, I did the standard poker, I want to look solid thing there and folded, which I don't believe is great. You make more money 3-betting this hand, but you can also profitably flat. So I do 3-bet, which is good, and I get called here. The vast majority of people are opening 30, 35, 40% of the hands here. And if you have a very complete barreling game, you know why you c-bet, you know why you double barrel, you know why you triple barrel, you can take advantage of this person. And this is a beautiful triple barreling hand. So we get this board. Now, generally, when you're c-betting on any board, you want to ask yourself, what is the most important thing you think to ask yourself when you're c-betting on any board? Go ahead and take a second. People have a lot of different answers for this, and I don't think they're really beneficial. There's a lot of ways to make things sound needlessly complicated, and that allows the trainer to sound smart, but it doesn't really help you. I think the answer is much more simple than most people believe it to be here, which is, how do I fold ace high? That is your most important thought always when you are continuation betting. On average, people have ace high or worse about 50% of the time on any board. Now, on some boards, such as this board, it's less. It's probably around 45% on this board, even less than that, depending on how you range it. On other boards, say if this board came 6-6-2, it's likely to be 60% or higher. But on average, people have missed the board about 50% of the time. So if you can construct a bet that you think will fold high cards, you usually will make a profit with the c-bet. Now, this allows you to get away with very big bets. If you bet 75% of the pot, which in 2018 is still seen as a ginormous bet, which makes no sense to me because this is called no limit for a reason. 75% of the pot needs to work 43% of the time. But remember, on many boards, the person does not have a pair, does not have a draw 50% of the time. So if you are not the type of person, like most people, to call a c-bet of 75% of the pot with a high card, you are getting taken advantage of. And that is what we want to do when we are the c-better. Now here, we have a bit of a multifaceted problem. One, the person has hit this board a decent percentage of the time. This is a fairly decent board for a lot of flatting ranges, which have middling cards, as 3-bet flatting ranges have. Usually the really big cards will 4-bet. A little bit less so these days. You used to see more 4-bets with the ace-king offsuit here. But now, this does hit a lot of the middle suited connectors. However, we do have some equity. So we go ahead and c-bet here. A little bit bigger, just so I want to make sure my bets have weight on the turn and river. So I bet really big. Now, what is the most important thought now that this person has called us? What is the most important thing you should be thinking about? The most important thing to be thinking about is, what is this person's range when they call you? Now, on this board, I refer to this as a capped board. A capped board yields what I believe it was Matthew John first called a condensed range. Typically on this board, people would raise the 8-9 because there's a flusher out there. They would raise a set of 6s, a set of 7s, a set of 10s, 6-7, just because there's so many draws out there that could possibly come on the turn. That being said, they probably would have 4-bet queens, kings, aces pre-flop, so it's hard for them to have an overpair. It's hard for them to have a set. It's hard for them to have 2-pair. So that limits their range to 1-pairs and draws. So thinking of that on the turn, we have to ask ourselves some questions. Do we expect our hand to be beating that? No. The 6 generally is not going to be beating this person's range, which is constructed of mostly draws, 10s and 7s and some 6s. So then the second question becomes, can we get that person to fold? this is where things get a little dicey. If you bet 2 times the size of the pot here, I think that actually is pretty effective in live poker. If you guys are about to go play live poker at the WSOP coming up, one of the bets I love on these capped boards where people have condensed ranges is to overbet the turn, because people just sit there with their 6 or their 7 or their 10 holding their private parts crying, because generally they don't want to call a 2x pot size bet on the turn with 10-9. Even ace-10. Imagine sitting there with ace-10 and somebody bets 2 times the size of the pot on the turn. You're probably not going to like that. Live poker, people have to table their hands. They feel stupid. Generally, they're just going to fold. Online, I don't think you get that benefit. I'm not even sure you're getting some 7s to fold here, especially on this turn card. Now, let's say that turn card was the 8 of hearts. What would you do? I believe you should barrel, because the vast majority of his hands are not going to contain a 9 or a heart. About 70% of his hands will contain neither of these. Even if it's 60%, let's shave it down. It's not exactly 70. I can't remember. But even if it's 60, which it's not, it's more than that, that still means a pot-sized bet will be effective. Because generally a pot-sized bet, pot-sized bet as a complete bluff needs to work. Oh, excuse me, let's pretend you have nothing here. Let's pretend you have nothing and you're just bluffing. So let's pretend you don't have the 2 pair. Let's pretend you're just bluffing. And the turn comes the 8 of hearts. Well, in that case, I think you should barrel, because it's very likely that 60+% of the time the person has no heart draw, no 9. And if they are the type of person that is not going to call with 2 pair when you bet the size of the pot on the turn, they're not really calling with anything other than that, so you're going to get a fold most of the time. And most people are of that caliber. And also remember, people raise a bunch of flush draws on different boards. He's probably going to raise all of his flush draws with a 10. Now, in this case, I thought that was the worst card ever. If the card was an overcard, a heart, I probably would have barreled the turn and barreled river. That being said, the 2 of diamonds I don't think is going to get him to fold anything, so I'm pretty sure I give up here. And yeah, I do give up, and he bets. I bets very small. I remember this. I was just feeling my oats, and I called here. I think that was a pretty poor call. Why did I think I have some history with this guy, but not enough to justify that. So he checks back. I don't know. I don't like his check. I mean, to be fair to him, I'm probably one of a few people that could turn my hand into a bluff here. I'm not going to. I wouldn't know. I probably wouldn't, because most people won't value bet at 10 here, but I think in tournaments you can value bet it. And to be fair to him, he probably should check back versus somebody he thinks is thinking about cards. But I think you can value bet the 10 here, because tournament poker players will never fold the 6 or the 7. You could even bet like 1/4 pot. There's just... The average person raises on the river 3% of the time. If you bet 1/4 pot, it might go up to 6. That's still royal flush plus. And anyway, he played it good. He played that hand well. My turn call is bad, quite frankly. I think I was gunslinging, playing a lot of tables when I played this. I was like, oh, I have history with this person. I call. None of these hands you should play. Now notice the raise size here, 140. Why? Because if every single person at this table flats us, we will make money. If 2 people flat us, we can bluff a little bit. If 1 person flats us, we can bluff a lot. If everybody folds, we make money. Therefore, there's really nothing bad that can happen as long as nobody 3-bets us. Right? Now, for some reason at this time in poker history, if you open to 140 right here, which is approximately, according to my advanced calculations, only 40 chips more than opening to 100, people take that as a wildly big bet. And they flat. I had a buddy of mine record. He had 1 month he opened to exactly 3x. Then the next month he opened to 3.1x. 3 bets versus him went down 25%. I have experienced similar numbers. So I go bigger here with my aces, with my 8 high. And I get called by no one. What's the most important thought when you open? Who is going to 3-bet me? Who is going to 3-bet me? If you ever watch live players, really good live players, the first thing they're always looking for is the people to their left. They actually, okay, you guys are going to go to Vegas. You should be sure to not fall for this dirty play. A lot of times they'll sit there, they'll stall, and they'll like straighten out their arm like they're going to fold. And they're doing that to see if you're going to motion toward the muck. Don't fall for it, okay? And you should be hammering them. We're going to be talking about 3-betting quite a bit, okay? Don't even look at your cards until they do anything, okay? Don't give them anything, because that's something I watch live pros take advantage of all the time, which I really don't like, because if the live pro opens, I can't 3-bet him as easily as if a recreational player opens. So anyway, I 3-bet here for value. A lot of ACR players just want to rebuy, get it in, so I do get it in. Oh, no. No. I remember this. Why did I fold here? I think I had data on this person, and I couldn't find a 4-bet with 10-10. And I couldn't find a 4... Yeah, so if his range is queen, queen, king, king, ace, 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 king, I probably have to fold. Yep, that's right. Okay, now I remember. Okay. Ace, 4, no. Again, we discussed. I just, I set up a lot of equity calcs with that hand, and I set up a lot of database reviews with that hand, and I just don't see it making money. Anyway. What would you do here? If you said flat, you have made a play that is 3 times less profitable than 3-betting. You should 3-bet. So I do 3-bet, and he flats. And I'm just going to go for value here. He calls. The turn, just because we're in a rebuy-ish period, I do bet here. Oh yeah, I jam. Okay, now I remember this. If you're going to jam, you have to ask yourself what's going to call here. I thought a lot of ace highs were floating me on the flop. That would still call me. I get called absurdly wide pretty much always, especially if there's a missed straight draw and flush draw out there. There's no way king, queen, queen 10 is folding to me a lot of the time. So I would not try to bluff this board. Let's put it that way. So I get called, and I totally value on myself. Now, going into further hands. So I rebuy. Good times. And again, not 3-betting the ace-7, having a lot of difficulty in simulations or practice making that hand profitable. And I just moved ahead a few hands here. Right here, I probably could make a flat barely profitable here, but I think it's good to show everybody you can fold a big blind to a 2x, especially when you have a really trashy hand like that. And, okay, yeah, I forgot to bring that up before, so I went back on that. So, let's go ahead to the hand we were just at. And, okay. Let's see, good. Just wanting to show you what I'm folding. Okay, so what would you do here with a king-9 offsuit? Here's my question. If this guy limped for 60, would you limp king-9 offsuit on the button? If your answer is no, why would you call out of the big blind for 95? There's a lot of people that say no for that and yes for that, and I think it's simply because calling out of the big blind is popular. And I call here because I don't believe he's going to double barrel on a king-high board as a bluff. So I believe I can turn this hand profitable. I want you to know I have much more evidence to prove that people flatting here with really garbage hands are losing money than I have are making money just in the databases I look at. If I did not have this king with an okay kicker, I probably would fold here. So let's say I had 9-6 offsuit. That's an auto call for a lot of people. I probably fold. 9-7 offsuit, I probably fold. 10-9 offsuit, I call. King-9, I'm fine with. So this board is horrendous. That is a great donk lead, which does not work. Alles gut gets him. And, okay, did I miss a hand there? Okay, so 9-7 offsuit on the button. Okay, so here we go. Beautiful spot where it is very unlikely I'm going to get 3-bet. So I go ahead and raise here. I raise a little bit bigger because I want these people to play big pots with me out of position. And since people do not like folding to button opens out of position, I'm going to keep putting them in that situation. I get 2 calls, unfortunately, which is not great. This is a fairly good board, though. How much would you bet here? Think about your answer. Pause. I think you should bet 1/3 pot. You should bet 1/3 pot because that needs to work about 25% of the time. And both of these players have missed at least 33% of the time. Most people will not flat. This guy's not going to flat with ace high because he's got this guy to deal with and you just bet into 2 players. This guy typically is not going to flat with ace high because you just bet into 2 players. It's not, now if he's got a draw, gut shot with any of that, you're not going to be able to get a fold. Okay, a little bit less. I get called twice. I'm done. And 1 lead. Go. Okie doke. Okay. And queen 4 offsuit. Let's see. You can open here if you assume you're not going to get 3-bet that much. So if you have data on these 2 people saying their 3-bet is something like 6%, which is most of the poker population, you can open here and make a profit. That being said, if one of these guys is a reg in your games and you see a 3-bet of like 9%, 10%, 11%, just leave it alone and fold. And if you're playing live, take a second. Just when it gets folded to you here, don't do anything dirty. Don't motion for the muck or anything, but just take a second and look who gets impatient for you to fold. Because a lot of people just want to get done with it, right? Now, if the guy just sits there motionless, you think about somebody who looks at aces, what do? They just pop the cards down right away. It's like they're buried treasure, right? Like, don't make a move. Don't let anybody know you got it, right? If they're really deliberately looking annoyed, that's either a pro making a ploy to get you to do something, or 90% of the time the guy really just wants you to fold so he can fold and go back to staring at his cell phone. So I do go ahead and open here. I love this open. So unlikely to be 3-bet. Very likely to get called by this guy out of position, which, by the way, guys, if this guy calls out of position and check folds to me, that's a home run. That's insane. That's 4, 5, 6 big blinds. That is your exact expectation with kings, no variance. So I was recently just playing WSOPC Baltimore, and I ran top set of kings into flush. Who cares? But I was happy with the whole game because people just kept giving me these home runs. They just kept calling out of the big blind, check folding. Every time I 3-bet, they called me out of position, check folded to the flop. They gave me 7, 8, 9 of these. You know, they just gave it to me, just lobbing fastballs down the middle of the plate. And you can take that too. And I get called here. So, by the way, I have not made an unprofitable play. At this point, I am still good for like 2/10 of a big blind, right? If they had 3-bet me, I am losing money hand over fist, okay? So here, okay, so it gets checked to you. What do you do here? What did I just say? What's the most important thought? Generally, multi-way pots, 2 people, both players have missed the flop about 33% of the time. Here, it's going to be a little less, just because the ace is such a profitable hand. Now, with this person, I think he calls with all of his aces, but he also calls with a bunch of junk too, so it's probably around 30%. So if you do a C-bet here, you need to make sure it doesn't need to be more effective than 30% of the time. So you can bet like 1/4 pot. I actually wouldn't have minded that, like betting like 250 here, 200. Because a lot of times, like if the guy just has like Jack 10 of diamonds, like he's not peeling, right? And if he has 4s, he might not even peel to 250. So I do believe the bet shows a profit. But because I can't be certain he's going to fold those hands, I just go ahead and check, which I'm fine with. Once everybody checks here, now I'm actually more sure there's an ace out there because almost everybody takes a shot at this board if it gets checked to them. But if they have an ace, they just check back. By the way, I cannot come up with a worse poker strategy than betting when you have nothing and checking back every time you have something. Which is, by the way, how a lot of people play. A lot of people, don't want to lose control of the size of the pot. I'm gonna check here. You know, it's a lot of times the guys, especially heads up, a guy's checking range is stronger than his betting range. They'll just bet every time they miss, and when they check back, it's top pair or second pair. That is a really ineffective way to play. Now here, I don't know anything about this guy. I have 10 high and I'm spouting off. Ooh, okay, I go for it. Because he checks, I think it's a little less likely he has an ace because he probably would have led. Still, bleh. I think it shows a profit. I'm not positive. I'm letting you know. And he checks. I am the greatest of all time. Anyway, do not open that hand. And you can no. No. And V4, 7 off, V4. This is the Saurus. The Saurus is a huge net, so I'm not 3-betting this hand unless I thought it would be funny to see him pissed off in the chat. He's not that big. By the way, the Saurus can play cards. I'm really, not gonna lie, surprised. It's just one of those things like when a comedian tells you like, oh, I'm also a carpenter, you go like, yeah, right, buddy. You're too good at this one thing for you to be good at anything. But yeah, you can play cards. And let's see. Trying to think of what I wanted to bring up here. Generally, yeah, I go for the bigger 3-bet size just because I find a lot of people sitting here with their like 8, 7, 6s just kind of get freaked out about flatting that much, even in position from a 31xx, so they just put it in, and then I have an 80-20 edge on 30 big blinds, which is probably one of the biggest edges I could have. No limit hold'em, and it's a fiesta. Woo! Da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da, you all lose. Okay, jack him at 6, I fold. That always happens to me, that's why I didn't have much of a reaction. I literally never look at board runouts while I'm playing, so I didn't even know I flopped quads till just now. Sorry guys, I had a little bit of a glitch there, so I had to move. I had to reboot my Hold'em Manager too. And here, yeah, with the ace-8 of clubs facing the 12x, I'm just going to go ahead and fold. And obviously the 5-deuce offsuit, I'm not playing, out of position. The king-5 offsuit. Well, what's your most important thought, gang? Is someone going to 3-bet me? So if you look to your left and you see two guys who are 40 plus years old, probably not. If you're playing online and you see guys with 7% 3-bets, you highlight the 3-bet, you don't see any special positional awareness, probably not. So I do go ahead and open here, and I get 3-bet very large though. And okay, so here, what do you guys think you should do? First thing is, how many hands does this person need to be opening before we can exploit them? I believe if this person is opening 15% of hands, I can exploit them. I remember back when I was playing cash games for a living back in 2007, if somebody opened 15% of the hands from early position, my friends and I would just analyzing that player later on in databases would go, this guy's screwed next time, and the guy was. Because generally, if you read Let There Be Range, that was the first book to discuss this, a 15% range is just going to be folding too damn much. If the person is folding second pair or more to multiple barrels, that is a lot of folding. You're going into 70, 80% of the time if the person opens up 15% of their hands. Now, luckily for us, on America's Card Room and all the American networks, a lot of people who spend all day looking at their cell phone and are bored constantly, when it's folded to them, they're not folding. They're opening 20+% of the hands. I am getting to the point where I can turn this hand profitable for 2 big blinds. When you consider that like ace-king offsuit is good for like 2.5 big blinds from any position just opening it, that's pretty dramatic. And generally, when I've set up equity calcs and you have a guy just calling out of position and not check raising 70% of the time or something crazy like that, as my friend Riards Dobelis discussed needed to happen when he ran that, if you don't have a person donk leading a high percentage of the time, check raising a high percentage of the time, they're just in a really bad situation. So I would really hope that I 3-bet here. I love this 3-bet. As you can see, now, if I win this, by the way, if I win this pot, 4.3 big blinds, that is very significant. And if this guy calls me out of position, notice that the 3-bet size is a little bit larger. The reason for that is whenever people see a very large 3-bet, what they end up doing is going like, whoa, 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 what's this? Okay, I call, which is really good. it doesn't leave the guy a ton of room for 4-betting. Like, he can't 4-bet bluff now. He was just risking 2 big blinds out of a 49 big blind stack. Now he has to risk all 47 of them if he would like to come back at me. I'm risking 6-7-3 to win about 4.5. He's got to risk 49x in order to come back at me. So what most of the time they do is they split the difference and they call. That's a very bad idea, because once you check, cap your range, I can represent damn near anything. I can do whatever I want. I get to see what you do. If you do call me on the flop, I have the option to either keep barreling down if I think you're weak, which I'm really likely to think if you call me on a suited connected board where you would have check raised your bigger hands. And if I want to take 2 free cards, I'll take 2 free cards, because you're probably going to check 99% of the time to me on the turn. So you're setting yourself up for an awful situation there. All right, guys, that's it for me today. I'll talk to you later. See you for the next part of this. Take care.